react when you first experienced racism?
How did you react when you first when you first got racially abused? Leroy, can you give any background to that? Answer the question, please.
Yeah, certainly. You know, I played football a long time ago, guys. Some of you weren't even born. Actually, all of you most probably weren't even born, apart from Marvin and the councillor. The first time I received racial abuse is when I was a young boy. And in all honesty, I didn't even recognise it when I was very young. I didn't know what it was, and it was a real shock. All I knew that it was really hurtful. But as I got older, I learned to recognise it. And when I played one of the very first games I played as a professional footballer was for Fulham. And we played in a really big game against a really popular side. And throughout the game, the two centre-halves were calling me racist names, and they abused me for 90 minutes. I was 17 years old, and I couldn't remember any of that game because of the amount of the abuse that I was getting. And then I came off the pitch and realised that that's what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to forget about the game that I was playing. So I had to concentrate, because I wanted to be a professional footballer so much. I wanted to concentrate on what I wanted to do and play football. But I didn't forget it. I never forgot it, because I went back to my dad, and my dad said, look, never forget, never ignore anything. You need to maybe just mention it when the time is right. The next time it happened to me, I used to play in crowds where the thousands of people would do the Nazi salute towards me. People would throw bananas at me. I was playing at Portsmouth, and as I was walking off the pitch, a young boy of about 10 years old spat on me as I came off the pitch, and stood next to him was a man. And I assumed it was his father, because I don't know. And he started laughing at me. And then that whole crowd started laughing at me. And I got really angry. And what was really kind of interesting was all the players behind me got really angry, and they started having a go, all the people in the crowd. And we came off the pitch, and I started having a go at them. And they said, why are you having a go at us? And I said, because last week when those people were throwing bananas at me, you didn't say anything. Or the week before, when people were calling me names, you didn't do anything. But as soon as you saw someone do something physical towards me, that's when you got upset. And I had to explain to them I was just upset from the physical abuse as I was the verbal abuse and from the throwing of the bananas. And that was the first time I was able to talk about it and then explain it to people I played with. And then from that time on, they started to understand a little bit about what I went through. So the message I'm giving you guys is it's really important to talk about it, you know, when these things happen, and to talk about it to the right people at the right times. And that will be your teachers, your parents, somebody you know. And from that, not only will it make you feel better, but it'll go a long way towards getting a solution. A lot of people say nothing is done about it, but to recognize these things, we have to report it, and we have to tell people about it. So it's really important to talk about it.
Thank you very much, Leroy. Marvin, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, so first time I experienced it in a way that I actually recognized it, I was probably about 5 years old. So me and my mum lived down in Devon for a year. We were in a refuge down there. And then we came back to Bristol. We moved to Lawrence Weston. So we were on the Long Cross estate in 1978. And I was literally the only kid in my school that wasn't white, right? And kids, I don't know, if it's okay for me to mention names, right? This isn't like a swear word, but kids just used to call me Blackie Sambo all the time. And I didn't know. It was like, I knew it was because of the colour of my skin. The kids saying, oh, chocolate and this, that, and no. But, you know, I was 5. So, and I was reasonably athletic. So I kind of got away with something. So I was kind of like in with the kids. But at the same time, sometimes older kids would say things. So it was always a bit of a feeling of vulnerability for me. I always felt a little bit vulnerable and a little bit outside to that. But growing up in Bristol becoming my teenager in the 80s, it was quite a tense place on occasion. You know, you had to be physically careful. Like Leroy was just saying, yeah, this was about name calling, but it was a physical contest. And it was not unusual for people to drive past my school. I went to St. George's School, which is City Academy. People used to drive past and shout out, "Oh, you you know, men to 13, 14-year-old boys swearing at us on the street, calling us names, telling us to do this, that, and the other. And if we went to the wrong part of the city, I remember being on the dual carriageway one night with my friends, and one Saturday night, we never went in the centre after kind of like 6 o'clock really on a Saturday, particularly if it was dark. But we ended up over Bedminster, and we were coming past St Mary Redcliffe Church, that dual carriageway, and we were about 16, and a bunch of men, there were about 5 of us, there were about 12 of them. I never forget that. One of them said, oh, are you this, that, and the other? And my cousin had been in the army, and he said when people racially abused him, he used to say, all right, mate. And so me, in my head, I turned around and I shouted out, all right, mate. And then they all stopped and they looked at us, and then I went, you all right? And then they went, get them. And we had this bunch of 10 men chasing us, 5 boys down St. Mary. Well, my friends were saying to me, why don't you just keep your mouth shut, Marvin? They weren't happy with me. But that was real. You know, whether it be the name calling as a kid or the physical threats we faced, particularly through our teenagers through the 80s.
That's thank you very much, Marvin. And sorry, Councillor Kye Dudd, do you have anything to add to the question?
Yeah. Thanks for that. I guess I obviously quite clearly come from a different perspective in the fact that in terms of direct racism is obviously something I've not experienced personally, but growing up, I come from a family where I've got a brother and sister who are mixed race. So growing up as a kid, my first experience of it was often my friends at school would ask a lot of questions about it, or why is your brother and sister a different color and stuff like that. So I think growing up, it just never really occurred to me really. They were just my brother and sister, and it was it started to affect me really when I was wondering why people were so concerned about it. And then obviously getting older as I got went into the workplace and things like that, I often so I went to work for Royal Mail where there's lots of different races, people working there from all kinds of countries, different languages, different ethnic groups. I'd often have people come up to me and say things about different people of a different group because they thought it was okay to say that to me because I was a white guy, so I must agree with them. So I often experienced that side of things as well as I went into the workplace as well.
Thank you very much. That was a really, really good question. As you can see, had lots of thought-provoking answers as well. That's some things that we need to think about. So can we get another question, please?
What did you do when you was first raciously abused?
What did you do? What did you do when you first racially abused? Leroy, can you give more insight? I think it's quite similar with the first question as well.
Yeah, and it certainly is, but it's a really good question, and it's a really important question, because what you want to do is get angry. And Marvin was talking about when somebody physically challenges you, you want to physically hit back at them. That's it's a natural human thing to want to do. But is it the right thing to do? Because what happens is when someone like that abuses you, that's what they want you to do. They want you to drop to their standards, and they want to turn that into something that was just a fight or just an argument, where it is racial abuse. And so what I used to do was I always challenged it, and I used to challenge it in the right way. But I didn't learn that until I was older, in all honesty. It took me quite a while to learn how to challenge it in the right way. And sometimes racial abuse isn't about someone, just like Marvin was talking about some examples of people screaming and abusing you. Sometimes it can be more subtle than that. Councillor was talking about in the workplace. There's things that happen in the workplace which are really subtle sometimes, and people sometimes know what they're doing, and they wouldn't even describe it as being racial abuse. And those are times that I always challenge them at the time. And the way to challenge it is to you have to suss out the situation for yourself. The person I can talk to about it. If not, what I would do if it happened in the school, I'd go and tell a teacher. That's the most important thing. If it happened outside the school, I'll go and tell your parents or your guardian about it as well. And as I said in the first question, people always say, oh, nothing ever gets done about it. But what happens is, especially at school, and especially in the workplace as well, when you guys go into the workplace, is that if you report it, people recognize it and they log it down. And what happens is they get a record of this sort of behavior, and then they can go and act on it if it's happening on a regular basis. In school, your teachers got things in place where they will definitely act on it. It's like I think the bullying policy in school as well. And it's really important that you tell your teachers when it happens and who did it as well, because they can come to a really good outcome usually in terms of dealing with it and for your own sake as well. And the reason why it's important as well to report it is because if you don't report it, that person who's said that thing to you goes on and does it to someone else as well. Because by not saying anything, they think it's okay to do that, and they think they've got away with it. And that can't happen. They need to be dealt with by whoever, the authorities, your teacher, to make sure that they don't go and do it again to someone else.
All right, thank you very much. Just got information that Mark Little is on the panel now. Hello, Mark. Say hi to everyone.
Hi, guys.
Hello,
Sorry
Mark.
about that. Straight off the training ground.
No problem, Mark. Mark, we've just been taking questions from the young people, and one of the questions they've asked so far, that if you listen to Leroy, he just answered the question like, what did you do when you first got racially abused? What was your reaction? Do you mind putting more light on that question for us, please?
Yeah, so, well, recently I was racially abused online. So I was just confused. Mine was a comment on one of my pictures online. So it wasn't usually when I'm abused via football, it would be if I'm playing a game or if I upset someone or provoke something. But over this weekend, it was unprovoked, and I just got a message left on my picture. So first reaction was really confused. And then I got angry. I just listened to Leroy there, but I couldn't get physically angry as the person that abused me was on the other side of the world. So I just got angry, and then I thought, I'm not going to let it ruin my day. So I ignored it until I calmed down. And then the first thing I did was report it. I reported it to Instagram, because this one was on Instagram. So I reported it. Then it gets through to Facebook. And then I reported it to the club, because the club, Bristol Rovers, have got good connections with the police. So it got reported to them. But yeah, so I went through a range of emotions, but just like Leo said, you can't react and come down to their level, and you keep yourself above that. You keep yourself off that level, and report it to your guardians, or if how seriousness my case, it needs to be reported to the police.
All right, thank you very much, Mark. That's a really, really horrible experience. And Marvin, anything to add to that as well?
Just like everyone, as Leroy might say, you feel angry, and as I was younger, you would try and maybe respond physically. But as I got older, I discovered there were more tools, more powerful tools in the box as well. I mean, you do need to be physically safe, but you get more tools. So I'll give you an example. When I used to play a lot of rugby, so I went to Swansea University. It's a very, very good rugby team. And I remember playing a game once I was on a Saturday, we were playing against a team up in, I won't say where, but it was a kind of a rural team. And they like to beat the students up anyway. And I was the only player in my team that wasn't white again. And through the game, some of the people on the touchline started calling me this, that, and the other. And I generally used to talk back when I was playing rugby, because that's what. So I at it, you know, there's a bit back and forth. And at the end of the game, I said to the crowd, I said to them, listen, I'm in your village, your town by myself, just me by myself, all right? And there's all of you, 100-odd people here, taking this opportunity to come and call me names. I said, that ain't no guts. I said, I could take any one of you somewhere today where you would not have the guts to say a word. I said, and that don't make you nothing to me. That don't make you strong or anything. And you know, I said a bit more, but I think what was interesting that some of the people from the village came and apologized to me because they realized the truth of what I was saying. It was absolute cowardice. There was nothing strong about what going on. I'm not saying this works every time. I'm just saying what happened. But there was something else I realized at that moment in time as well, that them calling me names on that day when I was like 22 didn't bother me, right? And why did it not bother me? Because I was a master's student, right? Taking a master's in politics. I played rugby league for Welsh students, right? And none of those people in that town had any control over my life. They had no control over my career prospects. In fact, where we were, they had probably disproportionately high levels of unemployment and lower levels of education than me. And I thought all the names that they were calling me didn't mean anything to me. And so in some sense, because of the investment I made in myself, I had robbed them of the opportunity to speak to me about them being better than me. But this one other thing, I'll give you an example more recently that, you know, I get a lot now, I'm the mayor. People don't always realize, but just like the, you know, Leroy and Mark will get it when their picture goes up. You know, I'm getting it. There's a guy in Liverpool just been prosecuted for this, you know, and it comes in. I don't know as much comes in as my office do. They get upset, you know, and then they tell me. But I tell you that our local paper recently, again, the way journalists deal with it has not always been helpful. Our local paper simply described it as the Bristol Post just described it as grossly offensive behaviour. And then what you get is below the black line in Bristol Post articles, like ravenous nonsense. And loads of people then start saying, oh, he's sensitive, he's this, that, and the other. You know, so there's a lot of ground to make up. So my sense is that the local paper just threw me to the wolves on that front, despite all they say about wanting to be progressive. So there's a lot of challenges, and sometimes you just have to hold it down and wait for another occasion, another day when you can say something. And sometimes you never get to come back at all. But my point is, I say to my children, you just have to invest in yourself, in your education, right, in your prospects, because those are the things that will help to protect you from the consequences of racism in its many forms.
Thank you very much. Just so we don't keep everyone waiting for too long, can we get the next question, please? Yeah, if I see someone raising their hand, if you ask your teacher and then they'll bring you close, please.
If you had one message to your past self experiencing racism, what would it be?
Okay, if you had one message sorry, say that again?
For your past self experiencing racism, what would it be?
Oh, thank you. Leroy, would you take that for us, please?
Yeah, so
Hi, Leroy.
If you had one message for your, what was the word, sorry?
If you had one message for the person who racially abused you, I think if I got that right.
For the person who racially abused
For your past self.
Oh, for my past.
Oh, for your past self, okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's really interesting. It's a good question because Marvin touched on it. And my dad used to tell me all the time, and when I was growing up and as a young boy, he always used to say to me, keep your powder dry. And I never understood what he meant. And what he meant was, don't always blow up at things because it won't have the desired effect that you want. And you have to wait for the right time. But never forget, you know, you get lots of parents saying, oh, just ignore it. Or they say, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Well, that's not good advice for me, you know, because words are very powerful. And that's why loads of very top politicians use them in a very negative way, by the way. But if you ignore something, it grows and you leave a void for something to get worse. So it's really, the message I was giving myself was that sometimes I'd blow up and I wouldn't get my message across because I'd be shouting and screaming and the message would be lost in the noise that I was making. So when you want to talk about something, make sure you're ready as well to make sure you get your point across. You know, Mark was talking. I've seen Mark on the news recently, and you know, and he got put himself across really well. And it's quite an emotive thing. You get very emotional about it, and he put it across really well, where people would listen and they would take it in and they would learn something from it. And so my message to my past self, to a much younger self, was to make sure that when I express myself, I express myself with clarity. And Marvin is right in terms of investing in myself. I was fortunate because, you know, I had an education, but people would look at me and judge me because my name was Leroy and think, oh, you know, he can't be the cleverest. And the only things he could do was most probably dance. But I actually went to a grammar school, I had a high level of education, and it was important when I had to express myself. So my message to you guys would be to make sure that you take in as much education as possible. It gives you confidence. It gives you confidence to deal with lots of different situations. And so that would be, and unfortunately I did, because my parents instilled that in me.
Thank you very much, Leroy. Mark, what would be the message, one message for your past self that Rachel used?
I think the guys have covered it there with more of the violence thing, because my younger self, that's how I used to protect myself. So it was always more of a physical battle. If I ever got spoken to in that manner, I always used to think fight first. Every single occasion I have done that, it hasn't worked out well for me, as I'm always the person that's upset, also punished for my violence. It would never ever be, okay, Mark retaliated, so he doesn't get any punishment. I always used to get detentions and this, that and the other. So my message would be never retaliate with violence. Always use the calm and collective bit of advice. But, like we said, the words are powerful, and I hate it the same when they say that sticks and stones, that saying, but because words can be just, words would upset me more than a physical battle at this moment in time. So it's that's the way we need to stay calm and collected and do the right thing, which would be not to react and go down to their level.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kye. You mentioned earlier on that you've never really experienced it, but you mentioned again that you've actually seen people who do this. What would be the message that you would want to pass to people who you've really known?
Yeah, I think looking back, I think the panelists are right. I think if you, with people who hold those views, if you just kick off, that's I don't think that's going to change their mind. I think maybe it might make it worse, but I think that there needs to be a reaction to it. And I think what I maybe regret is maybe not talking to my friends who think the same way as me and working together against those people with those views, rather than me doing it as an individual. So I think maybe talking to your friends about the experiences and people who share the same views as you, that racism is wrong, that you get together and try and deal with it as a bigger group. I think maybe I should have done that more.
Thank you very much. Marvin, anything you want to add to that, your past self?
Just it's the same as the guys. There's a very well-known book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Right.
Sorry about that. Can we please mute our microphones, please, so we just don't get feedbacks when we're listening to someone speak? Thank you.
It's all right. It's just I'd say what I wish I'd known at my children's age that I tell them now. The word responsibility is made up of two words: responsibility, and that you have the ability to control your response. And I say to my children, if someone wants you to be upset, and they say something to you because they say something to you because they want you to be upset, and you get upset, they've just taken power over you, right? They've controlled you. You may feel upset, but don't let them see they've taken power over you. So I would say to myself to really manage myself, and like Leroy said, it's not something you ignore. No one's pretending that words don't matter and this ain't real, but you bank it and you wait, and you respond on your terms in the way that you want to respond, but you don't give them power over your emotions and the way you feel about yourself. And if, you know, and you will feel upset, but at least don't let them see the victory they may have had in making you feel bad about yourself. But the point that both Mark, Leroy and Kaiser, you got to invest in yourself, yeah? You continue to invest in your bank of resources for who you are, be the best you can be. That would be an incredible source of resilience for you as you grow up, because this stuff ain't going away, right? It ain't going away anytime soon. So you've got to keep building your own resources up so you can support you can support people like you and your family.
Thank you very much. We've got room for 3 more questions. Can we get these questions coming in, please?
Marvin Rees, do you think the Bristol boycott change made do you think it may change?
The Bristol Bus Boycott.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, it did. I mean, change happens in many different ways. Sometimes you get seismic moments that are dramatic. Other times you get incidents that seem small at the time, but as they, if you know compound interest, but as they go through time, they become increasingly significant. The Bristol Bus Boycott led to not just a kind of a moral moment in time where a number of people said what's really going on, but it also was the pathway to the first equalities legislation in the UK. Now that in and of itself doesn't sound exciting, but there are occasions when people are being racially discriminated against, experiencing racism, where they have to go and appeal to the law, right? No one ain't going to do anything because it's right. They'll only do it because it's not legally, it's not legal to do it. And the fact that movement led to changes in the law has been a place people can go to find safety when no one else will protect them. So it was, you know, hugely important. I would also say it was great to see people you know, Black people leading, organizing, and that's really important too, to see Black leadership.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we get another question, please?
If you reported to the police, for the punishment for that person?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again, please? I think there was technical glitches there.
If you report it to the police, what would the punishment be for that person?
Okay, if you report racism to the police, what would the punishment be? Marvin, can you start with this, please?
Well, ultimately, the punishment is down to the courts, you see, and the magistrates. So the police, if it met a certain bar, the police might arrest someone, and then if they thought they should charge, they might charge, and then it's up to the Crown Prosecution Service to decide whether they think it could, whether there's evidence and whether it should go to court, and then it would go to a magistrate's court, and then they would make a judgment as it went through the system. So the police make an initial intervention depending on their assessment of the situation, but then ultimately it's down to the courts, and then the magistrate of the court would decide on the level of the level of the punishment.
All right, thank you.
But there are other.
Councillor
So can I
Kye?
just say there are other places outside the criminal justice system. So in employers, like people who own companies, they will have their rules. The FA has rules now that they would seek to implement. You know, and so there are other places where people make judgments and hand out punishments for people who are racist to other people as well.
Thank you. I was about to call on Councillor Kye to, if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, I think Marvin's absolutely right there. Obviously, the courts will look into that, and obviously, depending on the severity of the issue, then you know the punishment's got to be according. But Marvin's also right. You know, there's employers will have rules and training opportunities as well. So sometimes it's not always about punishment. So sometimes there's a role for education in this as well, because sometimes you know the reason for a lot of abuse is ignorance, and the fact that people have been brought up from a different background and they don't know different. So I think there's a role for education as well as punishment, and I think you know that's what Show Racism, the red card, does really well, because it's about education as well, to try and prevent people from holding views that are very offensive.
Okay, thank you. Leroy, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what I will say, because I do a lot of work on stop the hate crime, and it's a hate crime when someone is racist to you. And what the police do is recognise it a lot more than they did a while ago. Certainly when myself and Marvin were young people, and it's really important to report it. And you know, Marvin was talking about the Bristol Bus Boycott, but there's been moments in history which have changed the way that the police have behaved. One of them was the murder of a lad called Stephen Lawrence, and it obviously went to court. But there was a thing called the Macpherson report, and from that report, the definition of a racist incident changed, and it basically changed from if I said something to Marvin which was racist, and Marvin didn't think it was racist, but then Councillor Kye was listening in, he could report it. Because he thought it was racist. If somebody saw something happen, and even the people who took part in that didn't report it to the police, someone from outside that incident could report it to the police. And it's interesting, Mark and I, having been footballers, you know, things are getting shouted at us from the crowd. You know, because if someone shouted at me and I didn't report it, but someone stood in the crowd could report that as a racist incident, and it would be acted upon. And that was because of the Stephen Lawrence murder and that Macpherson report. So it changed the behaviour of how people recognised what a racist incident was. And so police now take it a lot more seriously than they did many, many years ago, because they now recognise it as being a racist incident or a hate crime, which is really important.
All right, thank you very much. Mark, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I think it's important just to know that racial abuse is a criminal offence. So although the punishment is down to the magistrate to make the decision, it is criminal. So they are breaking the law by doing it. I think Marvin covered that more than enough. But from a football perspective, if you get caught, if you get reported and then get proven to be using racial language in a football stadium, then but from Bristol Rovers, it's a lifetime ban, so you won't be allowed back in the stadium ever again. So there are, as we mentioned, there's lots of different punishments, education, there's lots of different, it's all to the severity. If you really hurt someone and it's racially motivated, then there can be stiffer punishments than somebody saying some bad words or something like that. It's all down to the severity.
All right, thank you very much. We've got room for one more question, please.
What does your captain say to you after a racist act happens on the pitch?
What did your captain say to you after the racial incident? This would go straight to Mark.
Well, I don't think I've been the captain at the times where I was abused on the pitch. So it's what I said to myself. That was many years ago, and I was the captain. And over the weekend, I wasn't playing football, so I haven't got the answer for that one, mate. But a captain, usually their role would be to look after all the other players. So if I was a captain and I heard someone get racially abused, then I would be the person to put my arm around the person, say, don't worry about it, we'll sort it after the game. And then I'd be the person I would report it to the referee and probably our manager, and then let the professionals kind of decide what action to take from there.
All right, thank you, Leroy. Your playing days, what did your captain do when you reported or got racially abused?
Well, it's quite an easy answer. Nothing. They did nothing because they didn't recognise it as being racist when I was playing. They didn't see it as a problem. They just thought it was normal abuse that you get from the terraces and being a footballer, as part of being a footballer. But what I will say now, if you ask that question to captains now who are in the Premier League, they would go, the person who'd been abused would go and tell the captain, he would go and tell the referee, and then the referee would act on it. I don't know if the guy saw the game, maybe, Matt, I don't know how long ago it was, England in Bulgaria, when the players were getting racially abused and the players came off the pitch, and that was instigated by the captain. And the reason it was instigated by the captain is because of education, because everybody's starting to get educated about the most important thing, recognising what racism is in the first place. And when you can recognise it, then you can act on it. So now captains, now it's people like Harry Kane. There was an incident at Burnley where Ben Mee, who was the captain, during the game, somebody flew a plane with a racist comment on it over the ground, and Ben Mee came out afterwards and absolutely and totally denounced it on live telly, and that was off his own back, saying that was unacceptable. That wouldn't have happened certainly in my day when I was playing. So that's really good. So captains are now taking responsibility for their players' well-being on the pitch, which is really important. So when I was playing, the captain wouldn't have done anything because he wouldn't have thought there was anything wrong with it. But now, because of the action and the work that not only Show Racing and Red Card, but the Show Racing and Red Card are doing the mass majority of it, but the Premier League are doing as well. I've got a badge on here because I work for the Premier League called No Room for Racism. The Premier League are now doing to promote the what racism is and how we can act on it. People that acting on it every single day. So now captains would take some action.
All right, thank you very much. Marvin, do you have anything to add to that question?
Well, I wasn't at the Mark and Leroy's level. I just knocked around on some rough rugby pitches around South Wales. And then I kick around on the downs. Got kicked around on the downs. That's what Kye does now, by the way. I mean, yeah, just like Leroy, to be honest, when I was down there, no one would say anything. I sometimes felt by myself, which is why I think when the England team walked off and when you've seen other teams come together around their players, it's really inspiring because you think, yeah, they're in it together. You know, I had close friends and I knew they'd be with me if it came to it, but it was, it was just kind of seen. Rugby was a little bit different as well. It wasn't as kind of, in terms of the relationship to the referee and discipline, it wasn't as savage as football, dare I say that. You get stuff, but it was, it was subtly different. But mainly stuff I experienced of that nature was on the street. But there's an important point that Leroy made right at the beginning. Racism isn't always what people say to your face, right? When I was about 17, I remember going out, I used to knock around I used to love the Royal Marines. I went up north once and there were 16 of us wanted to be Royal Marines. And there are 2 of us that were not white. And they gave one guy an A for fitness and gave me a B for something like that. And everyone said, you should not have got a B. And they said, that's because they don't want the only 2 non-white guys in there coming top of the group, right? Sometimes people don't say nothing to you, but they give you a lower score in your class. They don't quite see you. I worked for the BBC for 5 years, never got a promotion in 5 years. Within 5 years of leaving the BBC, I was at Yale. Within 10 years, I was mayor of Bristol. So sometimes people just won't give you a promotion. They won't give you an opportunity. They won't see you like a leader. They won't put you in charge. There are these invisible things that happen as well that can impact on you that you don't quite realize until you look back. So it's important to be aware of that as well. Again, comes back, invest in yourself. So if you don't get an opportunity, no one can ever say it's because you weren't smart enough or you weren't able, because you've proven your ability in all you do.
All right. Thank you very much. Councillor Kye, do you have anything to add to that question as well?
Yeah, obviously I've not played at a high level like Leroy or Mark.
You're all right. Kye, come on, I hear you're okay.
Yeah, but
you were giving out a lot of chat before you came on here, weren't you?
But I still play amateur football at a very low level. But I think that's part of the problem in football at the moment as well around racism. A lot of the issues are going lower down the leagues, aren't they, into non-league, and where there's the cameras aren't there and it's less picked up. So I think that is an issue. But where I play, when there's nobody's watching you, maybe one man and a dog potentially. If there's any racist incidents on the pitch, you'd report it to the referee, and if the referee's heard it, that player should be sent off and should get a serious ban from football. So I would expect it to be dealt with by the officials.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to say a very big thank you to everyone who's joined this event today, to our panelists, to the schools, to the young people who've asked questions, and again, most importantly, to our partners at Bristol Rovers SC, who've done massive work. That's Abby and Adams, and thank you very much. I know they're listening they're in the background somewhere listening to these events. Thank you very much. And then before we wrap up this event, I want the panelists to give us a word of advice, advise the young people, all of us as well, on what we can do moving forward on how to tackle racism. Marvin, can you start, please?
Just don't let it stop you. That's the key thing. It's here, it's real, it's not going to go anywhere. Just keep investing in yourself and never let anyone's words about you or opinion of you stop you trying to be all you can be. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mark?
I would say always stand up for it now, and don't let anything go unnoticed. Make sure you report it, and that goes for everyone, not just anyone that's been racially abused. If you hear your friend being racially abused, then it's your responsibility to make that known. So stand up for each other.
Thank you very much. Councillor Kye?
Yeah, we all need to make it unacceptable. So if you, as Mark said, if you're being abused or not being abused, we need to stick together and support the people that are being abused, and make it totally unacceptable in society. It'll probably take a long time, but it's everybody's responsibility.
Thank you very much. Leroy?
Yeah, I'll just echo exactly what the guys have said. But the important thing, guys, is that you are the guys who are going to change. You are the guys who are going to make the change. You know, myself, Marvin, Mark, not so much, and Council, we're a bit older now. And, you know, we are doing what we can. Yeah, I've got the old beard as well. Guys, when you get in positions into the workplace, you're going to be the guys who make the change and can make the change. You know, as a woman, or you know, you go into the workplace and it's the truth is women don't get paid as much as men because they're women. You know, people who look like me or people who have my name, Leroy, have had 50% less chance of getting an interview for a job because my name is Leroy, because people look at my name and they say, look, I'm not going to interview him. As Marvin said, they don't want to give you an opportunity. But you are the ones who are going to get into positions of leadership and are going to implement change. And you are the future. And so that's why it's so important that, as Marvin said, you invest in yourself, you back yourself, you report things, and you deal with them at the time, because if you wait, they lose their power, okay? And you need to deal with them at the time. And the most important thing to learn how to deal with things is to be educated and to be confident. And that I have no doubt that your teachers who are guiding you now will give you those tools to be confident and be the best that you can to implement those changes, which I look forward to seeing in the very near future. A lot of people say, look, racism is going to be here a long time. But when my dad was around, he didn't think that there would be a Barack Obama, the black president of America. There's a female vice president of America now. Sometimes you think things were a long way away, and then something happens in history and it kind of triggers things and gets things moving. I would suggest that you guys are the trigger to make sure that we get these things moving.
Oh, thank you very much. I want to say a very big thank you to our panelists. Ideally, if we were face to face, this is the point where we'll give them a round of applause. But I'd imagine everyone wouldn't put on the microphone and start clapping. But thank you very much. And again, just to add to what the panelists have said, today, you are the ambassadors of Show Racism, the Red Card, and you're leaving here today with a message. You've seen the film, you've managed to take in the message from the panelists as well, and you've seen the questions that some of your friends in the same classroom or the same year group have asked as well. So I'd imagine if we'd stayed longer, so many people would have so many questions to ask as well. So you are ambassadors of anti-racism ambassador, you are ambassadors of Show Racism, the Red Card, because today you've done an event with Show Racism, the Red Card, so you kind of understand that you are the ambassadors. You have to take this message out there. You have to report it when you see racial incident or any incident, discriminatory incident. You have to report it to your teacher, to your parents, to someone that you trust. If you can go as far as reporting to the police, like thank God today we've got Councillor Kye and the Mayor Marvin here today to give us highlights on what the police position on racism or racial incidents. So I want to say we should all take this message out there and spread to our community. That's the only way we can as well push our work down there, because you are all ambassadors. So I want to say a very, very big thank you to everyone here today. And again, I want to mention Bristol Rovers Football Club as well, and say a very big thank you and massive, massive thank you to our panelists for making out time to be here today.